You're at home, doing something boring and harmless. Dishes, laundry. One of those tiny life admin moments nobody respects until it becomes a problem. Then the phone rings, and the voice on the other end sounds scared, rushed, and weirdly familiar. Not maybe familiar, familiar enough to make your stomach drop. That is the trap. Not a movie hack, not a dramatic break-in, just a voice that gets there before your thinking does. The FBI warns that criminals are using generative AI to make fraud more believable, including short audio clips that can sound like a loved one in a crisis asking for money or ransom. That matters because the call is designed to feel personal before it feels suspicious. The consequence is simple and ugly. Once panic starts driving, every second feels expensive. The next move is not to admire the audio, it is to interrupt the pressure loop. A family code word, hanging up, and calling a trusted number directly are the kinds of checks that matter when the voice sounds close enough to hurt. What to watch next? How a tiny burst of believable audio can push people toward fast money decisions before they can slow the call down. The weird part is how little audio it can take to cause damage. Axios reported, citing McAfee researchers, that scammers may need as little as 3 seconds of someone's voice to clone it for a scam call. 3 seconds. That's shorter than a bad intro on a podcast, and it is enough to turn a tiny fragment into something that can sound close enough to trigger panic. That matters because generative AI is making fraud more believable, not just more annoying. The point is not perfect imitation. The point is to get past your first doubt long enough for the emotional part of your brain to take over. A voicemail, a clip from social media, or some other bit of audio can become a hook that feels familiar, even when the rest of the story is flimsy. The consequence is a pressure loop. The voice sounds urgent, the request sounds personal, and the caller tries to move you straight into action before you can check anything. The limited study evidence here also points in the same direction, but only cautiously. One 2026 archive study with 22 participants found poor performance distinguishing AI-generated voices from human-recorded voices in vishing-style clips, with mean accuracy of 37.5%. This is limited research, not a population-wide estimate. So watch for the pattern, not just the sound. If a familiar voice is paired with urgency and money, the next move is not to trust your ears harder. The safer move is to break the call and verify through a known path. Once the caller gets you moving, the ask usually gets simpler and uglier. Money, gift cards, crypto, anything that can leave your account fast and arrive somewhere messy. The FBI says not to send money, gift cards, cryptocurrency, or other assets to people you do not know, or have only met online or over the phone. That rule sounds obvious in a calm room. In a panic, it becomes a tiny miracle if you remember it. That pressure is exactly why the voice matters. The FBI IC3 says criminals can generate short audio clips containing a loved one's voice to impersonate a close relative in a crisis situation, asking for immediate financial assistance or demanding a ransom. So the scam is not just asking for payment, it is borrowing the emotional weight of a family emergency to make the transfer feel like the responsible thing to do. And people do get burned by it. People reported that a California mother lost more than $5,000 after a caller claimed her daughter had been kidnapped, and she believed she heard her daughter's voice. What we do not know from that report is every detail of how the call was staged, but the consequence is clear. Once panic and payment are linked, the brain starts sprinting. Next, watch for any request that pushes you to move money before you verify the person through a known path. So what changed? The scam itself is not new. Family emergency calls have always worked on fear, because if someone you love might be hurt, your brain does not exactly send a polite memo to your logic center before acting. The FBI IC3 says criminals exploit generative AI to make fraud more believable. And in these cases, they can generate short audio clips containing a loved one's voice to impersonate a close relative in a crisis situation, asking for immediate financial assistance or demanding a ransom. That is the mechanism. Not perfect identity, just a convincing enough voice costume to buy a few seconds of trust. Axios reported that cybercriminals may need as little as 3 seconds of someone's voice to clone it for a scam call. In other words, the trick is not that the scam sounds flawless forever. It is that the first hit sounds close enough for panic to outrun your verification habits. The consequence is simple and ugly. Once urgency lands, people can move money before they get a chance to compare notes. A 2026 archive study with 22 participants found poor performance distinguishing AI-generated voices from human-recorded voices in phishing-style clips, with mean accuracy of 37.5%. This is limited research, not a population-wide estimate. So the thing to watch next is not whether your ear feels confident. It is whether the call is pushing emotional urgency plus a money request. That is the red flag to stop and verify another way. Here's the uncomfortable part. A 2026 archive study with 22 participants found poor performance when people tried to tell AI-generated voices from human-recorded voices in phishing-style clips. Mean accuracy was 37.5%. That is not a giant population survey. It is limited research, not a population-wide estimate. But the direction of the warning is still useful because it undercuts the fantasy that your ears will always save you in the moment. That matters when the scam is built to feel emotionally familiar. A caller does not need a perfect clone to trigger a reflex. If the voice is close enough, the panic starts doing the work for them. And if the next sentence is about urgency, money, or a crisis, the pressure gets even louder. In that kind of call, the goal is not to become a voice forensic scientist. The goal is to stop the transfer before the panic gets a vote. So the better rule is simple. Treat emotional urgency plus a money request as the red flag, even if the voice sounds familiar. Use a family code word, hang up, and verify through a known path before money moves. That is the safer check to watch for next, because the scam works best when you stay trapped inside the call. This is where the fix gets refreshingly low-tech. The FBI recommends creating a secret word or phrase with family to verify identity. Not a public safety slogan, not the pet's name, not something the scammer can guess from your social posts or a quick search. Something boring enough to survive contact with real life. The point is not to make the caller prove they are your loved one by sounding sad enough. The point is to create a question only the real person should be able to answer. That changes the mechanics of the scam. A voice can copy tone, urgency, and even the emotional shape of a crisis. But a code word is a separate check, which means the caller has to clear a hurdle that panic cannot solve for them. If they stall, dodge the question, or act strangely offended, that is not a family drama. That is a warning light. And the consequence is simple. The code word gives you one clean reason to stop the money sprint before it starts. It works best when the family agrees on it ahead of time, because nobody wants to invent cybersecurity in the middle of a fake emergency. Next, we'll pair that with the other part of the rule. Hang up, then verify through a known path before anything moves. The other rule is even simpler. Hang up and call a trusted number directly. Not the number that just called you. Not the text thread that arrived with the panic. A number you already know is real. That break in the loop matters because the scam is trying to keep you inside its timing, where urgency does the thinking for you. The FBI IC3 recommends verifying the identity of a caller by hanging up and calling a trusted number directly. That is the mechanism. You stop treating the incoming call as a source of truth. If the story is real, the real person can still be reached through your known path. If it's fake, the pressure usually weakens the moment the caller loses control of the line. That's especially useful when the ask is money, because the FBI also advises people not to send money, gift cards, cryptocurrency, or other assets to people they don't know or have met only online or over the phone. The consequence is practical and immediate. You trade one scary voice for a safer verification step. That's also why this is not about listening harder. A 2026 archive study with 22 participants found poor performance distinguishing AI-generated voices from human-recorded voices in phishing-style clicks, with mean accuracy of 37.5%. This is limited research, not a population-wide estimate. So the thing to watch next is not how convincing the voice sounds. It's whether the caller can survive a callback through a known number, a family code word, and a pause before any money moves. Here's the part that should make everybody sit up a little straighter. Axios reported that voice cloning may need only a few seconds of someone's voice to clone it for a scam call. And Axios also reported, citing a McAfee survey, that 77% of victims in AI-enabled scam calls said they lost money, with more than one-third of those victims losing more than $1,000. That does not mean every call works, and it does not mean a voice clip is magic. It means the trap can be built from very little, a short sample, a believable tone, and a moment when the target is already stressed. Once the pressure is on, the call can feel more real than the evidence should, and that is the problem. A tiny audio scrap can turn into a full wallet sprint before anyone has time to verify the story. So the thing to watch next is not just the sound of the voice. It is the pattern. Emotional urgency plus a request for money. That's the red flag. The safer move stays the same. Use a family code word, hang up, and verify through a known path before any money moves. If money or personal info already went out, the next move is speed, not shame. The FBI's guidance sends to report the incident and keep the details together so you can act on them quickly. That means the payment method, the time, the contact path, and any messages or screenshots you still have. The reason is simple. Once the pressure trick has worked, you want a clean record before memory gets fuzzy and the trail gets cold. If you used a bank card, the bank may have steps. If you sent a gift card or crypto, the recovery options can be much harder, which is one reason the earlier rule matters so much. The FBI also says not to send money, gift cards, cryptocurrency, or other assets to people you do not know or have met only online or over the phone. That part is the trap's whole business model. Turn fear into a fast payment path. I'm not going to pretend every bad outcome can be magically undone. It can't. But people do better when they stop the spiral and document what happened immediately. The scam wants you embarrassed and isolated. Don't help it with free bonus panic. If this happens, watch what changes next, whether the same story spreads to more contact methods, and whether the money ask keeps shifting targets. The pattern here is bigger than one scary phone call. When a message mixes family emotion with a fast timer and a request for money or sensitive info, that is the red flag combination to notice. The FBI IC3 warns that criminals use generative AI to make fraud more believable, so the voice itself can become part of the pressure instead of proof. In other words, the scam does not need perfect audio to work. It just needs enough familiarity to stop your thinking for a few seconds. That is why the next version may not look exactly like the last one. It could be a call, a voicemail, or a follow-up message that keeps the panic moving. Axios reported that cybercriminals may need as little as 3 seconds of someone's voice to clone it for a scam call. And it also reported that in a McAfee survey, 77% of victims in AI-enabled scam calls said they lost money, and more than one-third of those victims lost more than $1,000. A limited 2026 RXIV study also found poor performance distinguishing AI-generated voices from human-recorded voices in phishing-style clips, with mean accuracy of 37.5%. That is limited research, not a population-wide estimate. So watch the pattern, not the costume. If the stage is built from fear and urgency, treat the voice like a clue, not proof. The safer move stays the same. Use a family code word, hang up, and verify through a known path before money moves. So here's the practical rule, plain and boring on purpose. If a call sounds like someone you love, and it pushes money fast, do not treat the voice as the final proof. Use the family code word if you have one. If you do not, hang up and verify through a known number or path before anything moves. That is the whole trick. Not listening harder, not arguing better, not becoming an amateur audio detective while your heart is sprinting laps. The FBI IC3 says criminals can use generative AI to make fraud more believable, including short audio clips that impersonate a close relative in a crisis situation, asking for immediate financial assistance or demanding a ransom. That is why the voice can feel convincing without being enough. The consequence is simple and ugly. If urgency wins, money can move before the mind catches up. People reporting on a California case said a mother lost more than $5,000 after she believed she heard her daughter's voice. And Axios reported that in a McAfee survey, 77% of victims in AI-enabled scam calls said they lost money, with more than one-third losing more than $1,000. There is still uncertainty in the detection part. A 2026 ArXiv study with 22 participants found poor performance distinguishing AI-generated voices from human-recorded voices in phishing-style clips, with mean accuracy of 37.5%. This is limited research, not a population-wide estimate. So the safer move is not to trust your ears alone. Watch for the pattern, emotional urgency plus a money request. Then check first, and only trust the call after the known path does. Bottom line, a voice that sounds familiar is not the same thing as a verified caller. That is the whole trap. Generative AI can make fraud feel more believable, and the FBI says criminals can use short audio clips containing a loved one's voice to push a crisis story that asks for immediate financial assistance or a ransom. Once the money pressure starts, The goal is not to keep listening forever. The goal is to interrupt the rush. The safe move is simple, even if it feels rude in the moment. Set a family code word now, hang up, and verify through a trusted number you already know. That matters because you should not send money, gift cards, cryptocurrency, or other assets to someone you do not know or have met only online or over the phone. And if you are thinking, I would spot it by ear, the evidence is shaky. A limited 2026 study found poor performance distinguishing AI-generated voices from human-recorded voices in phishing-style clips, with mean accuracy of 37.5%. That is limited research, not a population-wide estimate, but it is a reminder that your ears are not a security system. If a call already sent money or information, act fast and use the normal reporting and recovery steps available to you. Otherwise, watch for the pattern, not just the voice. Like and subscribe to Stick News for the next scam, ripoff, or cyber trap before it shows up on your phone. And answer this in the comments. If someone you love sounded terrified on the phone, what verification rule would your family already have?